This tutorial is for the Cowcatcher for the toy train. This is the hardest part that we have to create for the toy train. That's why I saved it for last. So we want to create new standard.ipt, and we want to go to Start 2D Sketch, select a plane, so if we look at the diagram they gave us to build this part, they used a lot of different views. We're basically going to draw sort of this trapezoid shape, but we've got to make it in, or we're going to start with sort of a house shape, a triangular house shape, and then we're going to create that in two different sizes. And that will eventually give us a trapezoid shape on the back. But to start with, we're going to draw this top part here. And it's 1.20 for the bottom line, for the width, and then 0.25 up the verticals. So we'll start with that. So we want to draw a straight line going across. And then we're going to draw a vertical. Hit escape. And we're going to draw another line on the other side, making sure they're perpendicular, 90 degrees. And then we need to dimension. Let's go ahead and dimension this bottom line to 1.2. And then dimension the vertical on the left to 0.25. And the vertical on the right to 0.25. That'll get us started. We're also going to now draw sort of, quote unquote, the rooftop. So if we look in this diagram, we see that from this bottom line that we just drew to the peak, the vertex, it's 0.75. Now, obviously, it's equidistant. So 0.60 is the distance from the side to the peak. So we got to put those two measurements in. So let's do this. Let's draw one line. Make sure you have a green dot when you start down here. Make sure you get a green dot. That means the lines are connected. And then draw it to about right here. Do not put it on the y-axis. And then you can right click and OK. So now we're going to dimension the tip of this line to the base as 0.75. Then we're going to dimension the tip of the line from the side, and that should be 0.6. And then finally, we're going to draw another line. Make sure you have a green dot and connect here. So as long as there's a green dots, everything's going to be connected and we can finish the sketch. So that's what ends up being the top of the Cowcatcher. So we've just created this face here. Now we have sort of a mirror image on the bottom, but the width of the bottom is larger, and the side here is still 0.25, but the height is larger as well. So the height for the smaller triangle is 0.75. For the larger one, it's 1.0. The hardest part about this is making sure the smaller triangle is centered within the larger triangle, and they can't be stacked directly on top of each other. They have to be a certain distance away from each other, a certain thickness. So we need to think about, okay, how far away is the top plane from the bottom plane? Do we see that number anywhere? Well, 0.625 is close, but that's to this peg. That's not actually to the top. So we need to, there it is. Here's the one we're looking for. So the top plane is 0.75 away from the bottom plane. So that's what we're going to have to think about, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So we know that this house shape is in the XY plane. That's what we chose when we started sketching. I need to create a plane parallel to that lines up over here. So in order to do that, let's see if it lets us right click. No, let's go ahead and do this. Go to the plus sign next to origin folder. Go to the plus sign there. Hover over the YZ plane. That's not the right one. The XY plane, that's not the right one. Oh, sorry, the XZ. The XY plane is the one that we drew on. So right click over here and check visibility. So now we see the plane, and I'm just going to stretch it out here so it's a little bit bigger. Well, it won't let me. Oh, that's okay. So we see the plane here that the shape is drawn on. I want to make a parallel plane to that. So I'm going to click on plane and click on offset. Then I click on the plane that we want to be offset from. And I'm going to move it back. Actually, I guess I'll bring it forward, grab the arrow, or just type in the number 0.75. So now we have two parallel planes. The smaller triangles on the front plane and on the plane to the right, and then the larger triangle is going to be drawn here on the plane to the left. Now it doesn't look like it's going to let me enlarge it. Yeah, it did. Okay, good. So now I just stretched it out, no big deal. If we rotate to front, we now see our original plane back here at the back with our original house shape. I'm going to draw a larger house shape on this plane. So we want to right click on the edge of our new large work plane and click New Sketch. Then I want to project geometry. And I'm only projecting the geometry of the bottom line. So just click on that line once. It should turn yellow. Now watch. When I rotate this cube, the bottom line from the original plane has now been copied onto my new sketch plane. And if we rotate it a little more, we see that it projected like a TV projector from one surface onto another surface. And that's what we want. Okay. Now, back to the measurements. According to this, the larger shape has a base of 1.8. The smaller one we've already drawn has a base of 1.2. So if you subtract 1.8 and 1.2, you get 0.6. If I want it centered, which I do, I need to add a little bit of line to the left-hand side, and I need to add a little bit of line to the right-hand side. The total should be 0.6. So do the math real quick. The left-hand addition, and I'm going to rotate this so you can see it a little bit better. Whoops, not that much. The left-hand addition dimension should be 0.3. The right-hand addition should also be 0.3 for a total 1.2 in the middle, 0.3 and 0.3 added all up is 1.8. That's what we want. Now, here's a little trick for you, just so we don't get confused from here on out. I'm going to turn to this. Actually, I'm going to go over here. Let's see if it lets me do this. No, it's not going to let me. Yeah, I want to avoid confusion. Finish sketch. Then come over here to this side, to your left. Right click on sketch 1 and uncheck visibility. Now the reason I did that is I don't want to be distracted by the triangle and the measurements and all that behind what we're drawing. So now that we've got a straight line and it's been centered already properly, and I can even turn that plane off if I want. There we go. I now need to go back into this sketch. If you click Start New Sketch, you're not using what we've already drawn. You're just drawing something new. So we need to go back over here to where it says Sketch 2, where the icon is, and just double click on it. and that opens the sketch back up. So it's like opening your sketching notebook to the page you were on previously, as opposed to flipping to a new page. So now we're back into our original page 2. Okay, so now we need to do vertical lines. Here's the endpoint. We're going to go straight up. Hit escape. Click line again. Go straight up, making sure you get that green dot at the beginning. And now we're going to dimension these. These should be the same height as the previous vertical lines, 0.25. And then this one likewise, 0.25. Now, this is also going to have what we call a gable, where it comes up to a point, and then comes back down. But this time, the height is going to be a little different. This time, the height should be 1.0. And the distance left to right should be 0.9, because that is half of the total distance down here, which maybe we should dimension that, right? So I can delete this. Let's delete that one. And then let's do an overall dimension here. There it is. So 1.8 is the overall dimension here. We had our original of 1.2. And then we have the 0.3 and the 0.3 that was dimensioned previously. So half of 1.8 is 0.9. That's how we know this peak is centered over this line. Finish sketch. So I'm going to rotate it again to the isometric view. I'm going to go back over to sketch 1, and I'm going to right click and turn the visibility back on so that I can now see both sketches, the small little house shape and the large little house shape. And if I flip it like this, the bottoms should line up on top of each other perfectly, and they do. Now, I think we used this once before. Yes, we used this when we did the smokestack. So if you haven't done the smokestack yet, you probably want to go back and do that one. It's a little bit easier, and that'll get you used to how the loft is going to work. So now we just go to Loft Tool instead of Extrude. And Loft is going to allow us to grow material between the large sketch and the small sketch. And then click OK. And then I want to hover over the green plane right here, right click on it, and uncheck visibility. And that's what we want to start with. So that is the basic shape of the Cowcatcher. We're going to leave it right there for this video. I'll post another video to show you how to add the pegs and cut the windows. So we're going to File, Save As, Train Cowcatcher. Oh, if I can spell.